You are listening to Zimbabwe News. Keep listening to Zimbabwe News.
Delicious one, the African Queen. Umakateni Clavete Council Melusi Ogoboy Benyati, Oma Fotloza, Escopo was Kamlameze, a city was Ferrari.
Thank you so much, there, Zaza. Very good morning to you all. Good morning, and thank you so much for joining us here on our Good Morning Zimbabwe. My name is Farai Gwazi. Getting your Monday started off at the top time indeed. Shortly be getting into our headlines, and then we roll over into our press review, and then get into our weekend roundup as it is a Monday. Then be getting into our business breakfast, and then we look at our regional and international news, and then wrap up with our sports update. But we always do appreciate hearing from our very viewers.
Absolutely. We want to say thank you so much for welcoming us into your beautiful homes via the television or via your phones or whatever apparatus you're using. If you're joining us on our Facebook page, that's ZBC News Online, welcome. It's a very good morning. And as always, we do have our early morning birds who've joined us. Tumelang to Deliwenkwena, Prince Trinos. Good morning, Bernard Shumbayarerwa, Paminas Mopavarara, Ngobile John, Allen Mahlemakhulu, my Laura Changana, good morning in Cape Town. NMR Sims, Ikoko, my dear, he's our energy levels checkup guy.
Yeah, yes.
All right, and Nathaniel Ngube, Cleta Sibanda, God knows Muchawaire, Abraham Jarare Mawire. All right, we do have Chamunorwa Mute, Okudakwashe Madondo Madzimai Saru. All right, we also have my Shamaine Walter Kuda, my Fungai Team Yeba Ifirizi Pamastones Apo. Yes, don't team young. Good morning.
Definitely good morning to you. Now looking at our headlines for the morning, government launches a presidential horticulture program in Manoti Gokwe.
All right, what you can expect this morning in Business Breakfast. Milk producer spearheading a dairy industry revival through value chain backward integration.
In regional and international news, a gunman in Nigeria released nearly 30 students from the July kidnapping.
And what we can expect in sports news, I'm so excited. Donata Katai's personal best. She's been doing really well in the Olympics. But anyway, Donata Katai's personal best, not enough to progress. But she didn't progress to the semifinals, but she qualified for the first round. But she's the personal best. But we're still excited about her.
Yeah.
Doing well, you know.
She's 17.
Can you imagine?
She's young. She's still got another, 4 years until we go to the next Olympics.
Oh, yeah.
So she'll be about 23. Yeah, looking forward to her being able to compete further. Definitely.
But she was raised in that flag. I'm super proud of her.
She definitely was.
All right.
Guess what? Trivia.
Ooh, we got trivia this morning.
Look at our trivia for the morning.
All
And
right.
did you know that on July the 26th of 1903, the first automobile trip across the United States, San Francisco to New York, completed by Horatio Nelson Jackson and Sowell K. Crocker?
I love the cars. Is that a Ford Model Ford T? That looks like it, isn't it? You know me, I'm such a car person.
Yes,
I love vintage vehicles.
A car enthusiast.
Love these beautiful cars. Right, so we still continue with our trivia this morning. Let's talk a little bit about the nuclear bombing of Nagasaki.
Wow.
Now, in 1945, physicist Raymond Schreiber and Lieutenant Colonel Pierre de Silva depart Kirtland Army airfields to transport the plutonium core for the Fat Man bombing of Nagasaki to the island of Tinian, where the bomb is assembled. Nagasaki was the second Japanese city to be bombed by the U.S. in the dying days of the World War II. Now, unlike the little boy dropped on Hiroshima on the 6th of August 1945, Nagasaki's bomb Christian Fat Man was plutonium-based and dropped 3 days later on the 9th of August. Now, although the second bomb was more powerful than that dropped on Hiroshima, the hilly terrain of the Nagasaki protected it to some extent, and there was no firestorm. The effects were still catastrophic, with the exact death toll unknown, but estimated at about 75,000.
Yeah, an extremely extensive measure of force applied there. And I understand it was a reaction from the Pearl Harbor attack that the United States had gone through just during the onset of the Second World War, when Japan also took on a position of being, I think, part of the Triple Axis. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And,
all right. So tell us a little bit more about what's happening. I think in 1950 something happened with Fidel Castro.
Yes, event of interest here currently. Now, in 1953, Fidel Castro leads an attack on Moncada barracks intended to spark a revolution in Cuba. Now, on the 26th of July 1953, the barracks was a site of an armed attack by a small group of revolutionaries led by Fidel Castro. The attack failed and the surviving revolutionaries were imprisoned. This armed attack is widely accepted as the beginning of the Cuban Revolution. Now, Cuba exploded into revolution when Fidel Castro and about 140 men attacked the federal garrison at Moncada. Although the operation was well planned and had the element of surprise, the higher numbers of weapons of the army soldiers, coupled with some of the remarkably bad luck afflicting the attackers, made the assault a near total failure. for the revolutionaries. Many of the revolutionaries were captured and executed, and Fidel and his brother Raul were put on trial. They lost the battle but won the war. The Moncada assault was the first armed action of the Cuban Revolution, which would triumph in 1959.
A lot of, trivia that we have this morning.
Yes.
Now, let's take a look at what happened in 1956. Egyptian President Gamal Abdel Nasser, is it Nasser? Nasser. Oh, there we go. Announces a plan to nationalize the Suez Canal, initiating the Suez crisis. Now, on this day in 1956, Egypt President Gamal Abdel Nasser seized control of the Suez Canal and nationalized it, sparking a crisis that later resulted in French, British, and Israeli forces briefly occupying parts of Egypt. On the 26th of July, 1956, what happened here? Although he offered full economic compensation for the company, the British and French governments, long suspicious of Nasser's opposition to the continuation of their political influence in the region, were outraged by the nationalization. The Egyptian leader, in turn, resented what he saw as European efforts to perpetuate their colonial domination. I think we actually have some footage on the Suez Canal happening there.
News brings you the latest incident to upset the chancelleries of the free world. President Nasser delivering his fiery speech telling of his nationalization of the Suez Canal. A seizure from private interests that the Egyptian says is his answer to the West for refusing to finance the Aswan Dam. It's a situation fraught with implications. But undeterred, President Nasser raises his country's flag to symbolize his action. And although his followers hail him and carry him triumphantly on their shoulders, in London, Paris, and Washington, the fate of the strategic waterway causes grave concern. A lifeline between the East and West, the free world does not want it dependent on the Egyptian government, which sends U.S. Undersecretary of State Murphy to London.
Of course, appreciating what happened there with the Suez Canal. And recently, that's the same place where the
dam?
The Mediterranean shipping company boat did the whole blockage. And they stopped right in the middle.
In the middle of
the middle of the canal.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah,
but it's coincidence? I don't know. Okay.
I don't know. All right, I'm still looking at our trivia today. In 1803, the Surrey Iron Railway, arguably, was the first commercial railway. And in 1945, there was a declaration of Potsdam. This is in the US and Britain and China. They demand the unconditional surrender of Japan during World War II.
Now, in terms of our famous people that we have, today is Mick Jagger's birthday. He's turning 78.
Got the moves like Jagger.
Oh, moves like Jagger. You know the story. But he's making money, eh? And then we also have Jason Statham, also turning 54. We all love his movies, The Transporter and all those things. But yeah, that's what we have for you in terms of treat. There's Jason Statham. I think there's a picture of him. Which movie was this one? I'm trying to think. Well, I don't know, but you know what? He's one of my favorite action heroes and all of that. All right.
No, I'm definitely appreciating there, of course, our trivia. And we'll also be giving you a whole lot more local trivia as we go through our breakfast program right here on Good Morning Zimbabwe. As you can appreciate, of course, Jason Statham there showing us what the ladies like to see. Well, let's get straight into our early morning news.
Once again, it's a very good morning and welcome to Early Morning News. In our top story this morning, President Emmerson Mnangagwa has sent a message of condolence to the Kahari family following the death of Professor George Kahari on Friday. Now, in a statement, the president said Professor Kahari's death adds to the pain and suffering the nation is going through after losing many Zimbabweans to COVID-19, particularly this month. He said the nation has lost one of its pioneering crop of intellectuals to join national politics from formative days of the struggle for freedom. The president added that Professor Kahari was held in high esteem for his scholarly achievements as an authority in the field of languages, literature, arts, and cultural heritage. President Mnangagwa said Professor Kahari served the country faithfully in various capacities, including as the country's ambassador to Germany, Italy, and Czechoslovakia. Professor Kahari was also at the helm of the board in charge of the Zimbabwe National Gallery.
Now, extending further on our stories, Treasury says that so far 93 million United States dollars has been channeled towards acquisition of vaccines as the government remains committed to fight against COVID-19. Let's get more on that story.
As the fight against the deadly COVID-19 pandemic continues, Zimbabwe today received an additional 1 million doses of the World Health Organization approved Sinovac vaccines procured by government. Finance and Economic Development Minister Professor Mthuli Ncube says so far 93 million United States dollars has been used to acquire COVID-19 jabs.
They are only fully paid for. So for the 12 million vaccines that we're procuring from China, we've spent including the syringes, we've spent about 93 million US dollars that we've already paid. So we've prepaid for all these vaccines. In addition to that, we've paid another 7.5 million US dollars for the acquisition of vaccines from the AU facility. And we still have, we're still going to receive another 1.15 million vaccines from the COVAX facility. So our vaccination program and the vaccine acquisition program is going very well.
Deputy Minister of Health and Child Care, Dr. John Mangwiro, says the inoculation drive has been decentralized to ensure herd immunity is achieved at community level.
The vaccination is no longer just happening at government hospitals only. We have cancer clinics are vaccinating. We have police stations are also been asked to act as vaccination centers. And we also have outreach teams in hard-to-reach areas. We have trucks that are moving there to even in the rural areas to make sure everyone is vaccinated. Remember, we are trying to reach a herd immunity, but we are also encouraging people to have a community immunity.
Dr. Mangwiro added that government is studying the available literature on the suitability of vaccinating those between the ages of 3 and 17. 1.5 million additional doses are expected in the country on Thursday, with government hopeful that it will have acquired 12 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines by end of September. To date, more than 1.4 million people have received their first jab, while nearly 700,000 others are fully vaccinated. Olindori, ZBC News, Harare.
Nyamapanda border post area in Mudzi district is on course to achieve a herd immunity, with more than 50% of its population having been vaccinated.
Government's thrust to achieve herd immunity in border towns is well on course, with at least 52% of residents of Mashonaland East's biggest border area of Nyamapanda having been vaccinated. The area's leadership, led by District Medical Officer Dr. Sam Mutapre, expressed the confidence herd immunity is achievable not only at the border area but the entire Mudzi district, which has so far recorded the least number of cases in Mashonaland East.
The uptake of the vaccination program has improved. We have dismissed myths and misconceptions from people and communities. Was initially people did not want to come for vaccinations, but over the past 2 weeks, people have now started coming for vaccinations.
Tiri panyaya yevaccination yekutanga zvaida kuti inetse vanhu vanga vasiri kuzvigashira, asi pazouya this third wave taona ndopavamhanya vabereki vachiziva kuti zvochokwadi chirwere chinoita sei chinouraya ichi.
Health and Child Care Deputy Minister Dr. John Mangwiro, who was on a tour of Nyamapanda border post and Kotwa Hospital, was impressed by the vaccination program in the district.
We want to say our border residents in the borders should be safe from this disease. And we also want people to come to the borders and feel safe, because if there is no vaccination in the border towns, we are in big trouble.
A total of 1,558 people have so far been vaccinated at Nyamapanda border post against a target of 3,020, while the entire Mudzi district has seen 13,500 being vaccinated with a target of 76,500. Gerald Sasa, ZBC News, Mudzi.
Carrying on with our early morning news, the government has launched the presidential horticultural program in the Manoti area in Gokwe in a move aimed at uplifting marginalized communities in line with the National Development Strategy 1.
Under the program, a bore will be drilled in each ward and schools in marginalized communities to enable people to practice horticulture production, thus empowering them.
Within a short space of time, we have seen the government has done and continues to do under the steward leadership and visionary leadership of His Excellency. Only jealous people will fail to see the major strides government has done to the people. These boreholes and the Pumvudza program are clear examples of such projects which are people-centered vision 2030 is possible and achievable.
Nokuda kokuti maraina yakawanda ndati 35,000 anoda kuiswa mvura nemamwe vatida kugadzira zvibhorani. Tati tinotanga isu nemaraini matatu pawadhi yoga yoga. Asi kana izvozvo zvatikurira totanga totsvaga nzvimbo nhatu muwadhi, totsvaga imwe totsveta muwadhi kuti mawadhi ose akwanise kuwana, todzokerazve toita imwe round.
Tiri kuda kuita business at the village level. Horticulture in the sense yekuti pa boho rega rega pari kutarisirwa kunzi paiteka scheme half hectare, right, kekurima.
The community welcomed the government development program with optimism.
Mafarira tiri kuita ndeyekuti tiri kuona kuti zvinangwa zvapurezidendi zvavakataura even pamanifesto dzavo zviri kubudirira.
Tafara zvikuru anoti matibvira nepi tati titambura mvura.
The Second Republic is making deliberate efforts to uplift the livelihoods of marginalized communities as the country targets attaining an upper middle income economy by 2030. Tafara Chikumira, ZBC News, Gokwe.
Well, that's all we heard for you in terms of early morning news. Coming up next is the press review. Don't go away. Once again, a good morning. Welcome to Press Review. Farai, every single day we look at different newspapers. What are we covering today?
Yes, definitely we'll be looking at the Herald, and we'll be extending it towards the Newsday and Kwayedza.
And the Chronicle as well,
the Chronicle, definitely looking forward to those. And we do implore you once again to always make sure that you actually do purchase the newspapers. We're purely just giving you the headlines, just to give you a brief update on some of the stories right there. So that's our first story. Let's come up from the Herald.
All right, our first story is from Chief Court Reporter Fidelis Munyoro, and the headline reads, President makes key appointments. Now, President Mnangagwa has appointed Justice Mary Zimbabwe as the new judge president, while Mrs. Fortune Chimbaru becomes the new Deputy Attorney General. Justice Zimbabwe, who has sat as a judge of the High Court for 10 years, fills the vacancy created by the promotion to the Supreme Court of the immediate past Judge President Justice George Chiweshe. She's the second woman to occupy the top High Court office after Justice Rita Makarao, who was the first promoted to the Supreme Court, and then in May this year was one of the first 5 judges appointed to the Constitutional Court. Some great news there for women empowerment.
No, definitely
Absolutely.
is. Definitely is.
All
I'm sure
right.
you're loving it there, Zaza.
Yes.
Now, moving on to more headlines in the local press from the Herald. Our headliner reads, a police officer in soup over smuggling. A story from the Beitbridge Bureau, written by Tupeyo Muleya. Now, a senior police officer, Inspector Elias Mawomba, 47 years old, has been arrested for conniving with one of his subordinates to divert 2 vehicles from offloading smuggled goods inside the Beitbridge border post last week. Inspector Mawomba and his subordinate Dixon Siakwimbi are deployed to Beitbridge to conduct security and anti-smuggling duties at Zimbabwe's border with South Africa under Operation No to Cross-Border Crimes. It is reported that the 2 men assigned by their commanders to escort 2 vehicles carrying an assortment of smuggled goods. Challenges there with corruption.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so we now move to the arts. And this is a story by Mbali Ndlozi in Pretoria. This is on behalf of the Herald. And the headline reads, Play Tackles Gender Inequality. Now, religion and culture has been touted as the source of gender inequality and oppression for most women in Africa. A narrative such as divorce is a sin and a prayer is a cure for everything has forced women to stay in abusive marriages for decades. Now, theatre play Izibazi Zomendo, which means Scars of Marriage, seeks to explore how culture of gender-based violence and misogyny devalues women and normalizes violence. The play is part of the annual National Arts Festival that is on virtually for the 2nd year due to COVID-19 regulations.
Definitely, the Grahamstown National Arts Festival being a significant contributor towards arts within the region. Now, moving on to the Chronicle that there's, our headliner reads, LP gas shortage hits Bulawayo. Story from Ngowi Pule Chili, who is the Chronicle reporter. Now, Bulawayo is facing a shortage of a liquid petroleum gas, which has seen the commodity price going up in a few centers where it's going to be sold. Now, sources say that the shortage is partly due to disruptions in product importations caused by protests that occurred in South Africa nearly 2 weeks ago. LP gas is among the rising alternative energy sources that members of the public have resorted to. Now, the price went up from a $1.70 to $2, this is US dollars per kg, and a 30 rand from a 25 rand per kg and equivalent using the parallel market rates. Moving on to the Newsday, Zaza.
Absolutely. We can find a story from the Newsday by Sharon Sabindi, and the headline reads, "A female artist must define